All right.
Guys, Monica's here.
Hi,
Can you hear
Monica.
me? Hi. Yeah, I have a need. My office, the one that I'm working as a general contractor, we have a small office here in downtown, and we are moving out. So we have a few furnitures that I just have to get rid of, and I posted already on Kegel Capital on the Facebook, just like a small table and two action chairs, sofas. So if you guys, anybody knows, anybody interested, still very good condition. If you want to use for staging, or maybe if you guys have a home office, I think would be ideal. Just let me know.
Oh, nice. Oh, thank you, Monica. Yeah, I just,
You guys.
yeah. Well, there you go, guys. Reach out to Monica if you're interested. Anybody else? Anybody have deals going on? Anybody come out of deals? Any needs? Okay. Well,
we're gonna be listing our properties, sorry, very shortly. So we're gonna have 5 deals on the market, 4 in Makaha and 1 in Kaneohe. So everybody kind of keep a lookout for that. If you have any potential buyers, holler.
yep, we're crossing our fingers to see what's gonna happen in the market. So we do have another need, which is since we're a part of the NPLA, which they have a partnership with John Burns Research, which is kind of like the top tier data, right? And so they're asking us to disperse a link with a survey. Obviously, it's voluntary for fix and flip investors. So if you have fix and flipped, if you have done deals in the past, then we'll ask that you please take some time, just a few minutes, to fill out the survey. They do track who it's coming from, so it does win us some brownie points. And in return, I believe they give you the option to choose a market to receive market data that they have on that market. So it's valuable information that they'll give in exchange if you just answer a survey. Alex dropped the link in the chat, so if you guys have time and you have flipped houses or done deals before, then we ask that you please take some time to fill the survey out. It'll help us a lot. All right. Well, there's Kekua. Hi, bra. How's your boba? I think you're muted.
Hello.
Hello. How's your boba?
Aloha, everybody. Boba. Not everybody needs to know I had boba, but that's all right. It was awesome.
Well, we're celebrating. Are you gonna tell them? Well, Kekua passed his exam. I forget which one it was, but now you're officially what? What's your title now?
I just passed my managing broker's license, so now I can actually run entire real estate enterprises, apparently. I don't know. It was a really hard test. I honestly thought I was not going to pass. It was 3.5 hours. About 2 hours into it, I was just going to walk away because I'm like, there's no way I'm passing this. But I think the guy at the front desk thought I was cute because he had to have changed the score. There is absolutely no way that I passed it. 100%. I walked out. I had my head down and I was super bummed. I was like, oh man, I got to go study now. And the guy's like, congratulations. I'm like, congratulations for failing? He's like, no, you passed. I'm like, no, check the ID. There's not a single way I passed that test. And he's like, is this you? I'm like, yeah, no, run it again because there's no way. There's 100% no way. You have a technology error. Like I can tell you with integrity, there's no way I passed that exam. I'm like, it was so hard. He's like, what's supposed to be hard? You're supposed to manage a lot of people. I was like, man, it was impossibly hard. But anyways,
dude, we're recording this and this goes straight to YouTube after, right? So
well, that's okay because I will with transparency tell the world there's no way I should have passed that test.
No secrets here.
we don't hide anything. It's like I have no idea. There's a yeah. Yeah,
Um,
I'm just gonna wait a couple days before I get excited, just in case they actually audit their results and they're like, you know what, somebody actually manually changed your fail to a pass because getting 2 out of 400 right is not passing. But
if I know you deserve that one, man. So congratulations.
no, it's all good. It's all good. Well, cool. Did we get started, Corey? Do we have leads
Yep,
needs?
we did leads, needs, good deeds. Oh, you gotta take the
Sweet.
survey, by the way, in the chat.
Take the survey in the chat, so the chat's there, so it's good. We got Zach and Andrew. I don't see Andrew. I see Zach though. Oh, there. Oh, you're right next to each. Are you guys on this? Going to share the same screen?
Yeah, we're just sitting in the office.
Oh, okay. Zach, you gotta pan it over so you guys look like a cute couple because right now all we
No.
see is Zach.
He's trying to hide from it. No.
Well, this is awesome. Well, welcome everybody. We're gonna jump in here. We're excited because we've got two really, really good friends of ours. They're in Tampa right now. Zach is from Tampa. Andrew's actually from California, and he's out in Tampa. So he's been in a new market. So that's exciting. He's actually, Andrew's an investor in California, Idaho, Florida, and I don't even know where else. So maybe some remote islands off the United States shores so he can hide all of his riches.
Yeah, technically, we still own a couple of things in Hawaii too. Actually, I think one thing in Hawaii technically. So
Nice. So multi-state investor, which is great. And Zach is a really successful wholesaler, direct to seller, creative finance, flipper, kind of just a whole host of things, and a car lover. So he and I get along just fine. So it's been great to get to know them in Tampa. They're based out of Tampa. Anybody who's been watching anything in the news with real estate, they know Tampa is an amazing market, and more is to come, I think, in that whole Tampa to Orlando area. And that's where today's going to be kind of fun because we're going to be talking a little bit about the market of Tampa, but we're going to talk a little bit about what they do and get a chance for us to actually get the inside scoops of what happens when you decide to invest in another state. And a lot of us are from Hawaii that's on this call. So a little bit of the insights that they can provide is, what happens if, you are trying to invest in Florida? What does that look like? What do they think is going to happen in Florida? And what some of the potential might be there. So it'll be fun. And then they're going to be part of our Rise Up conference that's happening on Oahu on the second weekend of October. Did I say that right? Is it the second weekend of October? It's in October. Give me a second here and I'll tell you exactly the dates. It is October 14th, Saturday, October 14th. That is the second weekend. And so that'll be fun. If you're in Hawaii, anywhere near Hawaii, or just want to be in Hawaii in October when the fall hits, then that is all day Saturday, going to be at the Dave and Buster's, actually. So we get a chance to go do some real estate, play some games, drink some beer, and have a whole lot of overpriced appetizers. So it'll be a good time for everybody.
great time.
Great times. Yeah. Dave and Buster's is always good fun. So so with that, let's just we'll jump in, and then for those of you who are listening, just drop some questions in the chat along the way. We're just going to chat a little bit about the market there, and would love to have some of you chime in if you've got any experience doing real estate in different states as well. And if you got questions for Andrew or Zach. So Zach, just tell us a little bit about, I know your story, and I know I didn't do justice, but a little bit about your background. Where are you originally from? Tampa? A little bit about your experiences and that type of thing.
Yeah, so originally born here in, I guess, 40 minutes north of Tampa. So it's just easier to say Tampa for everyone else. Been here my whole life. I just turned 26 in June. So been here as long as I've been alive. And really, I got started in real estate, I guess you could call it the first kind of sales experience I had when I got involved in real estate. But before that, I worked on cars as a car mechanic. I owned a little shop. And before that, I worked at a local grocery store here called Publix. So, I was always around people, always a people person. And then in 2021, I got involved with the New Wealth Advisors Club, and it's just been, the leverage of the community and being able to have the resources and everything under one roof has just been a huge part of the success that I've had, and being able to not only help homeowners, but be able to structure those creative finance deals, feel confident doing flips, as well as growing, a network of the community and contractors and things like that. So That's kind of the short of the long, but yeah, it's been awesome. I've done just about over 100 deals now, between wholesaling,
Nice.
fix and flip, and some creative stuff. It's funny though, because until this year, I actually didn't keep any of the creative finance deals that I purchased. I ended up wholesaling them to other investors and just making a smaller fee. And then, this year, one of my repeat sellers, actually, he had a third home that his stepdaughter lived in, and she was moving into another house, and he gave me a call. And where the location of the house was, when you get a little bit north of Tampa, you get into Hernando County, where I live, right? So Tampa is Hillsborough County. A little bit north of that is Pasco County, and then just north of that is Hernando. And so that's where I live. And what's funny is we have a parkway called the Suncoast Parkway that really travels from where I live all the way into Tampa. And that's kind of where it ends. And so the Suncoast Parkway has been extended north a few counties up now. So you're seeing a lot more growth in those areas because, the price points are getting a little bit, they're more affordable, because before it was an hour and 20 minutes, let's say, to get to Tampa, where now it's, 45 minutes. So we're seeing a lot of people moving up north a little bit more just because, the homes are more affordable. And so that's where I saw a good opportunity to pick up my first seller finance deal that I wanted to keep myself up there. So it's been awesome. I've been able to help a lot of people, been able to learn a lot of different avenues and different ways to help people, which, I think is really the coolest part for me. Instead of just being, I do a good amount of wholesaling, but it's because I've made a lot of connections and I'm able to solve everyone's problem, so that's really
That's
what
awesome.
yeah.
Tell us a quick story of somebody you helped. I always think those are so cool.
Yeah. So I talk about this one. We go back to the leverage thing a lot within our community, right? And so Mike Yamamoto, who's over, with you guys, he gave me a call from Hawaii and said he was helping a seller there who was facing foreclosure. He was going to be buying the property and helping that seller get into a new home. But his mother actually lived here in Florida, in a location called the Villages, which is about an hour and a half north of Tampa. And he, he reached out and told me that he didn't really, have the knowledge of the Tampa market, but he knew I was pretty good in this area. So I went up to Sandra's house and ended up making her a cash offer. But, the cash offer was great. She was happy with it, but I knew that they probably needed as much money as possible, to kind of pull it together and then go buy a bigger home, a little bit bigger home for all of them in Hawaii. And so what we did was we actually ended up bringing one of our members in from New Wealth Advisors Club to have them list the home for sale for us. So what we did was, instead of giving Sandra, our seller, $350,000 for her house, we ended up offering her $385,000 for the property. Because what we ended up doing, because it was in such good shape, right? It didn't make sense for me to come in and buy it cash, add some value, and then resell it, because there wasn't too much value to add. But we ended up getting an offer for $410,000. So
Wow.
she was able to get $35,000 more. And I ended up splitting the cost to ship the pod of all her stuff over to Hawaii. It was $10,000. So I split that with her 50-50. And, for her, she was pretty stressed through the whole process because, it's a big move to go from Florida all the way across, all the way over to Hawaii. Right. And, so what I did was I helped her with that, but she trusted us so much at the end where she actually signed the title to her car to me so I could go sell it for her once she left. And, I could wire her the money. And for me, that just stood out, so much because, I did only meet her 2-3 months ago. So for someone to have that trust with someone that quickly, that was just a really big, cool moment for me where I was able to, help her feel comfortable, get her even more money than she asked for and still make it a win-win-win for everyone. So that's a good example of,
Can
not
I
a
add something real
or
quick
anything
on
like
that
that.
one?
Of course, Marianne, go ahead.
Yeah,
Marianne, it would not be the same if you
yeah.
did not add something.
Right?
Hey. We're not in MFQ class today. No, I just wanted to say that Sandra really loves you, Zach. I
Aw,
mean,
that's-
she trusts you so much. And, on the other side of that flip of the coin is her son, who really trusts Mike Yamamoto.
Yeah.
And just that two together. And believe it or not, at one point, because we weren't sure where we were going to place them and they want a big house, that she offered to be our PML. Can you believe that?
That's so
The
awesome.
money that she made, but we told her that they appreciated we were going to, but we found a place for them and they needed all that cash. So, but just the leverage and the trust that you build with your homeowners, and
Right.
like for them to offer $350,000 as a PML is awesome, right? That's just the testimony of the relationship that we have with our community. But great job, Zach, and great job, Mike.
Yeah.
Let's bring on
Awesome.
another one.
Yeah,
super.
that's awesome. No, that's so
Yeah.
cool. I mean, I think that's a big part of what sometimes we miss as real estate investors, that it's not about how much money we make, but it's sometimes how much money we give and how much money we give back to the people that need it the most. And so, that's the fun part of a deal like that, is that you didn't make a ton of money, but man, it probably created a ton of memories and just the good vibes, good feelings that you get from doing what's right. So
Right.
yeah, it's awesome. It's no wonder you're successful down there. So we'll talk more about some of your flipping success in a second, but let's have Andrew do a quick introduction on himself as well. Your ghost second over there.
Here he is.
I can't be the ghost if you make me talk. So my name is Andrew Boswell. I guess, I'm a full-time real estate investor. I'm sure you guys, most of the people that are on the call, have heard of New Wealth Advisors Club at some point. So that is my parents' company. So I have been doing real estate since I was like 14 or 15 years old, and I turned 30 in a couple months. Yikes. So
hey, it's not that bad. 30s are good. It's the new 10s.
No,
the new teens.
Yeah, jeez. I mean, I guess the club is really my life. That's really what I do. So mainly wherever I go, and I've lived in Hawaii, I've lived in California. So I've done real estate in just about every state that I've lived in over the different years. I've done a lot of different stuff in my life, including some time in the military, and a lot of time in construction. But basically, I just go wherever I'm needed as far as the club. So that's why I lived in Hawaii for a while. I did some real estate over there. And then I've been in Tampa since February. I've been here since February.
Yep.
Yeah. Basically doing the same thing out here. So it's been a really cool opportunity for me. I think a unique experience in getting to live in so many different places, that I get to learn new real estate markets wherever I go. So when I lived in Idaho, that was my first kind of understanding of acquiring rental properties creatively. So we acquired two different subject to rental properties that our family still owns out there in Idaho. So that was a cool experience there that I did while I was working construction. And then obviously getting to learn Hawaii's market was definitely a unique opportunity and a treat. And I really think that pretty much anywhere I go now, the market will be easier to learn than it was in Hawaii. So that's what's really cool. But also, one of the most unique experiences I do have is basically just that of being able to learn and get involved in a real estate market very quickly. Is a skill that I think I've developed over the last probably 6 or 7 years. And the cool thing about it is it's really the same kind of fundamentals. It's just about knowing what to really look for as far as building resources for boots on the ground in whatever market out of the state that you live in that you're looking to invest in. So pretty much it.
I love it. Well, let's dive in from there then, and then we'll go for a little bit and then let some folks ask some questions. Greg's got a question, as you just mentioned. He's asking, why was the Hawaii market so much harder to learn than the others?
It's not that it was necessarily harder to learn, as you would say, as a real estate market. It's more just so that obviously the culture in Hawaii is very different than anywhere else. And so more than anything, I think it was just a really good reminder and kind of like a, bring you down to earth kind of thing, that you really have to connect with people if you want to be successful doing this wherever you are. That regardless of where you are, it's really about learning culture and learning people in the area that you are. Which, I mean, honestly, Hawaii wasn't really, I don't want to say it was hard. That probably wasn't the right word. It's just so scary to everybody because it's expensive. But to be honest with you, it was not really anything different than anywhere else. And I think Hawaii actually was probably easier for me personally than Florida is, just because of how much I personally relate with the culture in Hawaii compared to Florida, because Florida people are kind of weird. And they're not all nice and sweet like Zach is. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, it's totally true. I think Hawaii, I think every market has its own nuances. Hawaii definitely has some cultural connectivity that's pretty deep, and you know, you go to a place like Idaho, for example, Andrew, where you were at. Idaho's so different, but such a unique market. What city were you at in Idaho?
I was in Idaho Falls, which is southeast Idaho, and funnily enough, as different as Idaho is, the culture is actually very similar to kind of how it is in Hawaii, where if you're not from there, you better have very deep connections to people who are, or they're not going to give you the time of the day, at least where I'm from or where I was living. So yeah.
That's interesting. So summarize it really quick. If you were to tell somebody, especially folks from Hawaii that want to potentially invest in a new market across the ocean, if you will. So if you were to go into a new market now that you've gone into Hawaii and Idaho and now Florida, what would be the top 3 most important things that you would say are keys to being successful when you first go into a new market? So you mentioned one, I think already, which is definitely connect with the people first and make sure that there's a connection there, and really, I guess, to use additional words that you didn't say, but I would assume that meant, you know, get connected with some people, get to know them, get to know the culture, really start to figure out the heartbeat of the people. So, I mean, I think that's what I heard you there, but how would that fit in with, you know, say 2 or 3 more things?
I mean, I think that is really the basis for everything, because one thing I've definitely learned is that as much as I can learn a market pretty quickly, I'm still never going to really know it like people who are from there. So the biggest thing for me is just like when I was in Hawaii, you know, with like Joel and Marianne and Christian specifically, and also Mike and everything, it was more about building a good relationship with people that I knew were going to give me the info, like, you know what I mean, or teach me what I needed to learn. So that really is the foundation for it. Like, as much as I kind of understand Tampa for the most part, and I'm getting to know the area, every single thing I know, I run by Zach, right? Anything that comes across my plate, because I understand that I'm not going to know Florida the way he does, Tampa the way he does for a very long time, if ever, right? So that's really honestly the biggest foundation for me. And then I know, I mean, you know, it's the same resources you need to close a real estate deal anywhere. Now, thankfully, with the leverage of the club and everything, and with, you know, obviously you guys and Keiko and Omnia, I can not have to worry about funding a deal. But specifically, it's also, I mean, when it comes to money, if you want to just go down that road a little bit, it's also being able to get lenders comfortable with a different market than what they know too. So that becomes a really big thing. And then beyond that, it's just the specific resources, like, for example, in Florida, we deal a lot primarily with distressed properties, so pre-foreclosures and things. So one of the biggest things here was Florida is a judicial foreclosure state, much like Hawaii is. So having a real estate attorney as part of our resources was one of the first things that we did, and been a very big part of what we do. And then next, honestly, I'd say find someone who is local, who has a good relationship with a contractor. That's been the thing, because no matter, at least in my experience, we were just talking about this with my mom the other day, no matter how good a contractor is, they still have to honestly kind of get trained on how we do things. So finding a person that you like, that has enough of the skills that you're willing to put the time into, you know, creating expectations and, so to speak, training them on what we do. Those are probably a few of the biggest things that I've learned.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really good. Have you done anything in particular when you go to a brand new market that's helped you to really get to know the people quickly?
I mean, just being in public restaurant, honestly, that's really what I do, is I just try to be in as many public things as I can. But I also try to go to places where, like Tampa, it's not as bad, but it's a big city. So there's a lot of tourism here. So again, it goes back to, you know, meeting the right people that are locals and just going to do things that they do. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I find that when I go to New City, we were just looking at Waco because of a 40 unit that we were making offers on. And the couple places that I always can get a sense of the local people is the local gyms. So we try to pick a different gym. Obviously, I'm a gym person. And so the gym's kind of cool because people are willing to talk. And usually you see blue collar workers there. So they're contractors, plumbers, electricians. And you can kind of tell who they are because they actually wear the shirts that say electrician or plumber or something. And so it's fun to pick their brains and be like, hey, how's development here? How busy are you guys? And And it's pretty interesting to hear because they'll tell you all kinds of stuff about their market, right? And what the costs are. And so that's really good information. And then I also love just coffee shops. Like, and I think Andrew, you're about to say just hanging out in town, eating at public places, going where people are and just overhear conversations. And I'm always the type that starts conversations with strangers. So at first I think they freak out because they're like, who's this weird guy just suddenly jumping in on a conversation? But it is fun. People have so much to share. But I agree with you. And then the third thing that we do is we always try to figure out who the big players are that are the investors in the market. So trying to get on Facebook early and then just seeing who's the real estate investors that are the movers and shakers and who's calling those meetups and who's gathering the experts and who are those experts, because then it's fun to get to know them and pick their brains as well. But that's been helpful for us as well. So just extra thoughts to add to your thoughts.
Love it.
So in terms of Tampa, so for those of us who are not as familiar with Tampa, now I've done some research on Tampa. I've checked out the population growth, the median income growth, schools and crime rates and everything. And Tampa's amazing. And Orlando's also great. And I think a lot of people like Orlando more than Tampa because by the time a hurricane goes from the coast into Orlando, it goes from a 5 to a 3, right? So I think there's a lot of population growth in Orlando, and I like an area right in between. I think it's called Lakeland. So that's interesting. But for those of us who are not familiar with Tampa, can you just give a quick overview of what you're seeing in terms of long-term projections for, say, flipping as one, because a lot of us on here are flippers. And then maybe on the second part is, what about in the projections of what do you see as opportunities? Is it going to be more flipping? Is it going to be ground up development because there's so much population, or is it kind of the multifamily side? What are you seeing?
So for me, I really started noticing it around the COVID time period, because really Florida was pretty much open during that whole time. And so I definitely think that had a big draw of the demand, right, for a lot of people moving here. For Tampa specifically, it's kind of been undervalued for a long time. You have Naples, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, Jacksonville. You have a lot of these really nice places by the water. And Tampa, I feel like, was not a hidden gem, but I definitely feel like the prices were pretty low. And so what happened when COVID hit was the hedge funds were buying pretty aggressively here, which kind of drove the prices up a little bit in the greater Tampa Bay area is what we call it, right? So that's like the counties surrounding Tampa as well. But it's been going up ever since. And I thought there would be a bigger slowdown or shift in the market here. But I think what's happened is because we have a pretty good demand still, even with interest rates higher than, they normally would be, we still have a lot of people moving here and actively buying. I just finished a flip that I had like a month ago where we sold it for $465, right? And so where that price point was, that's not technically affordable housing in Hernando County. $350 is usually the height of it. And we sold that within 2 weeks. We had it under contract. So that told me just kind of that, people are still moving here. The demand's still high. But even more so, to go to the multifamily thing, we were over in Orlando, like the Davenport area, which is kind of in between Orlando and Tampa. It's like right below Lakeland. And I tell you, the amount of building that's going on out there is just crazy, from single family to big apartment buildings, 150, 250 unit buildings are going on out there. And so truthfully, I don't see it slowing down here too often or too soon. The flipping, I think, is still very well, for me personally, I stay in the affordable housing. You can pick up homes in my area for 150,000 that are worth 250 to 300, right? So it's a little bit different of a price point, but for me, I know that no matter where we're going to be in a market, that price point is always going to have demand, especially with rents increasing. That was a big thing I noticed once those hedge funds started coming in, right? They overpaid for the house and then they increased rents substantially from, maybe a normal rent increase year over year. But people are still moving into them and still buying. In Tampa, you have a lot of new developments going on from in their downtown area to even, we have a local place called Armature Works, which is probably 5 minutes from our office right off the Hillsborough River. And the growth, even in that area, you have a lot of the older homes being bought, tore down, and new construction going up, so they'll pick up lots for 200-300 grand, and they'll be building $8 to $1.2 million homes in that area. So, it's very active, whether it's single family, multifamily, fix and flip, buy and hold. Florida and Tampa in general, in my opinion, is growing pretty quickly. So that's my experience.
That's
We are
amazing.
We are looking.
And it's
into
crazy
some-
because 300,000 what as affordable is crazy. Or buying at 150 in Hawaii, 150 can't even get you vacant land. It can't get you condo.
A great example. I bought my house in April of 22, and it's 2 acres. It's a 1,600 square foot house. We fully renovated it when I paid $325 for that property. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a little bit more. It's 40 minutes from downtown Tampa, but I like the quietness,
Yeah, dude, find me a house next door. I want to buy one. 300,000. That's fantastic.
My neighbor actually just went under contract. We're selling his house on an acre.
Oh my
Or
gosh.
something.
Corey, we need to buy in Tampa, man. Let's go.
That's what I've been saying, man. See, got
Got the thumbs up support too.
We're all thumbs up, man. We're all thumbs up.
Yeah. But
Well, Zach,
ahead.
tell me about the hedge funds in there. Who's there? Blackstone?
Blackstone,
BlackRock?
Amherst, Tricon, Progressive, I think it's called. I think it's Progressive. Yep, Stage Street,
Yeah.
Main Street Renewal, all of those. They were buying very heavily here. I've tried to wholesale a couple properties to them actually during the time. For me, I haven't had too much success with it. Most of those hedge funds, they want at least a 10-day inspection period, which isn't a bad thing, right? But for us, tying up a home when we're trying to sell it to another person for 10 days to come back and either renegotiate or say that they weren't interested in it, just made it a little bit more difficult. Granted, they would pay a little bit more than some people, but for me, I like more of having that personal relationship and building a buyer's list that I know and trust, versus just, hey, let me send you this agreement and see if you can buy it or waste my time. I like the longer term relationship play, but yeah, we had quite a few. And then really over like the Christmas time last year, they kind of stopped buying for a little bit, which I think is mostly standard. They need to reevaluate what their spending limits are and things like that. But yeah, it's been pretty crazy.
So they're still in the market then over there?
Yeah.
Buying?
Yep.
They're still
Yeah.
buying? Wow.
Mhm.
And they're buying above market or at market value? Or
Yeah.
Probably not as heavy.
I haven't, I haven't talked to too many. I know I have a couple friends who are investors locally that they said they were trying to sell a couple too, but they're being a little bit more picky, so the bigger things are like most of them, don't want a pool. They don't want your property to be on a double yellow street, so main roads. They can't be over a half-acre lot, things like that. So they're really getting more refined on what they're wanting to buy, but they are still buying.
Makes it less fun.
interesting. Yeah, it's always I think it's wise for us to keep watching like what those guys do, because they're the money. So they move,
Right.
they're the reason why they're moving in or out of markets and what they're
Mhm.
doing. So
100%.
yeah, we've never had that in Hawaii. I think it's because the price points and the volume's just not there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are
Makes it
talking
tougher
about
to cash
the
flow.
Hawaii market, it's different.
Yeah.
So because I remember when I think this was like 2015-ish or so.
Mhm.
That was a big thing where hedge funds were just, wholesalers were just hooking up with hedge funds and just like wholesaling things virtually, like not really seeing the property, like then working just off volume because they were just buying everything up. I think Blackstone was a big buyer at that time again, for single family. So like Florida is a state and a market that happens quite a bit, right? Like these big hedge funds come in. So like Hawaii, you don't really see that. I think it's because of the volume and the price points. But in Florida, especially Tampa, I've seen them come in big and then leave and then come in again. Is that what you've seen in town? I mean,
Yeah, I've seen like a slowdown and then they pick back up. Truthfully, I don't know what exactly it is. For me, I wish I had a closer relationship with someone who worked directly there. But also partially I feel like it's, they overpaid so much for homes at a certain point, and then they increased rents, where now they drove the prices up and the whole market just demanded a higher price, where now it may be a little bit harder for them to buy in these certain areas and still cash flow the same return that they were looking for. Because that's the one thing I know is, it's all a numbers game to them anyway. They have to deploy their cash, and if the numbers make sense and the house is in okay shape, we'll buy it, And then when I think interest rates went back up, they kind of slowed down and reevaluated, what they were going to be buying and what areas in Tampa. You do have a lot of different demographics and different neighborhoods around here where they may have been buying, 8 months ago, but they allotted their 300 houses that they needed to buy in that area. And now they're reevaluating and looking in maybe town and country instead of old Seminole Heights, right? So different price point, different style home, concrete block versus wood frame, things like that, is really what I was seeing more of.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's so interesting to watch those, those players, because they can move markets, which is what I believe this was on the table for the NPLA to take a stance on. And because these big, for companies, it's not just Blackstone, it's like even the mid-sized ones, that are coming in and buying up property. And what they don't want is for us to become a nation of renters, right, to these hedge funds. I mean, I believe they said, like, I don't know how true this is, but I think 80% of the S&P 500 is owned by like 3 groups, right? 3 or 4 groups.
BlackRock and Vanguard, there's 2 of them. Yep.
State Street. Yep. So there's 3 or 4 of them. And that's pretty scary, because that's people's retirement is being controlled. 80% of it is being controlled by 3, corporations that I'm sure talk to each other, and that's 100. What I'm saying. Unfortunately, it's part of the game. Like, we have to watch what they do and kind of play the game, I feel, because either you get run over or you get to ride in their wake, so it's like, what side are you going to be on? And I think the MPLA was going to take a stance against that, which I think is the right stance, to be honest. And
that's really been, I think, for me, like a realization, wholesaling is great. It's a very active real estate investing strategy. For me, growing into the passive income, though, the more I see hedge funds and bigger companies buying all the real estate, it's like at some point they are going to own a mass majority of it, right? And I don't need more than 100 properties, to be, happier than ever, right? So if I can help homeowners and still be creative and get those assets, I think it's a huge benefit for us, because I mean, although they're driving up the demand, we still have those distressed people, that really don't want to sometimes have a higher price. They want to have the care, right, and the actual relationship with someone where, you actually take the time to listen to their problems and help them solve them and lead them in the right direction. So, yeah. Absolutely.
Because we can get numb to it. I feel I'm guilty of this too, because it's what we do. It's our profession. We do it every day, and after a while, like the process, the numbers just become like, it's no big deal. But we have to remember, like, most of the time when somebody like sells their house, or if they're buying or doing something, right, like that's one of the biggest moves for them, right? And like sometimes, I'm guilty of it too. It's just forgetting that and not being as understanding as I should have been, possibly, right? So I think, it's important to remember that. But I'm glad that you guys always put that first, man. That's why it feels like family when we go over there.
Yeah. So we try to.
Zach, how are you guys finding these deals right now, you and Andrew? So I know you got like 2 flips going on right now, which is great. And I think most of us are always in that acquisition mode and trying to find that sweet spot on how do you get the best deals, especially in light of the fact that the economy may be still dropping. What's your sources?
So I can give you a couple, and I think this goes for a lot of different markets. We've been having some really good success in a lot of vacant properties right now, vacant and out-of-state owners, for the obvious reasons, right? It's a lot easier for a homeowner to sell a house they don't, always live in, right? Especially if they're out of state, than one they call their current occupied home. So vacant properties, we've had a few deals recently that have gone really well that way. actually driving for dollars has been a pretty good success for me. Not only do I tell like my neighborhood and my community what I do, that I help homeowners and I purchase properties, but I'm always, if I'm at an appointment or if I'm helping a homeowner, I'll take 10, 15 minutes and just drive around the neighborhood to find other properties that look distressed, right? So my first home that I bought, the first deal I ever did was the neighbor's house, the one next door. And I went on to buy 2 other houses on the same street I lived on that we ended up flipping because the neighbor across the street knew what we did and she was friends with the tenants there. And one morning, it was 7:30 in the morning, there was a dumpster getting dropped off in the driveway and she messaged my wife, hey, I think the people moved out next door, they might want to sell it. So I walked over there in my flip-flops at 8 o'clock and the homeowners were over there cleaning it out and put it under contract that day. Like just little things like that went a long way. Even to the flip that I just finished was actually 2 doors down from my house, my new house. So the homeowner used to keep the yard like super pristine. It was an acre lot. And me and my neighbor that I'm friends with, we noticed it started getting just more and more like out of shape, right? Like it wasn't being taken care of. And so we had a storm hit. And so I was just talking to my neighbors across the street, talking to them, making sure they were okay. And they filled me in that our neighbor who had that property, he was going into surgery earlier that year, and there was a chance he wasn't going to make it through the surgery. And unfortunately, he did pass away during it, right? So the relationship I built with the neighbors found that part out. So I reached out to the daughter of him and come to find out that there was a mortgage. They couldn't afford to keep it. And so I ended up purchasing it once it went through probate. So again, it was vacant, but as well, it was a driving for dollars or walking for dollars, I guess you could say, is a good way to put it. So those couple ways, the flip I'm doing right now that I just started was actually a bandit sign. And that was a 15-month probate deal that I had to take on. So it was a super long process, but I love bandit signs, not only for the opportunity to find homes, but contractors, title agents, other wholesalers that maybe send you some good opportunities here and there. All of those things I think are a really good opportunity from the bandit sign. So those are just a couple of the ones that we've been having some pretty good success with, other than, our CRM that we have with the club.
That's awesome. Just, I'm always curious about this bandit signs. You get all those ones that write cheesy permanent markers on cardboard that they got out of a dumpster. And then you got the guys that do high end. So what's your secret to the bandit signs?
Yeah. So I always do, for me, I do white blank ones and then I write on them. We buy houses, as is, and then a phone number or, any condition. We buy properties with a phone number. And what I try and do is I try and put them out, Thursday or Friday. Our code enforcement, they're off on the weekend. So chances are they stay out during the weekend with heavy traffic. And then during the week, they'll come by and take them down. But even like where I'm located, I have a bandit sign from the flip that I just closed a month ago that I put up a month before we listed it. And it's still up at the gas station. I'm still getting calls. I need to go take it down, but they keep calling because it's right by the stop sign, right by the highway. And they haven't taken that down yet. But so I usually don't have them pre-printed and I usually don't write too many cheesy things. But the one thing I love about bandit signs is that it's an inbound call, right? So they're making the effort to reach out to me about selling their home. So I know there's motivation, right? I'm not cold calling them and seeing if they're interested. I know they're reaching out to me. So it's a little bit different of a motivation.
That's awesome. That's good. Yeah, it's kind of fun. Now, do you also do a little bit of direct mail and then do a little bit of Google ads and those types of things as well?
Yeah, so I've tried Google ads. We had some success in it. For me, I couldn't really dial it in enough to where I was happy with it. We did a broad range of Florida, so it wasn't just the Tampa area to get people, to get more clicks and more leads coming in. But what I found was, and maybe it was just my message wasn't correct or things like that, but I'd get people that would submit a form for a PPC and, oh, sorry, I'm not interested in selling, or it's a retail property, or, things like that, to where it was a give and take, right? It had a return on it, but it also was a lot of, I wanted to call them back within a minute of it coming in because time kills on those kind of leads, right? And so when you do that and you spend the money for it and then it's a brand new retail listing, sure, I could offer a listing agreement or something like that. But most of the time they're wanting that cash offer. That's why they're reaching out through those avenues. So Haven't done too much more of PPC. Direct mail, I do like. I haven't done too much of it myself, just because for me, I think it's hard to measure that return, right? I could send a postcard or a letter in the mail and it could sit on someone's fridge for 8 months before they then call me to ask me about it. But what we're doing is we're taking our bigger driving for dollars lists and we're cycling through them, right? We're calling them once, twice, 3 times. And then the ones that we're still not able to get a hold of, then we're taking that more specific list and we're sending mailers out to them. Yeah. So that's
awesome.
been a good way. Yeah. Just because it's more expensive too, versus the other avenues.
Crazy expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Banded signs are your time and a permanent marker and some paper. So yeah, definitely much cheaper. What about Andrew? What's Andrew now? Andrew's been only down there for less than half a year and he's bailing on the market already. So Andrew, in terms of what you've been looking at down there as an outside investor, what is it that you are finding? And after you leave the market, do you still plan to invest there? And what is it that you'll be looking at?
Yeah, I mean, so again, for me, wherever I go and whatever market I'm in typically is mainly based on the club other than places that I've lived. So a lot of what I've been doing and what we are still doing is like the vacant stuff and everything, but we primarily work with foreclosure stuff too. So we do a lot of door knocking. Like tomorrow we're getting, I don't know, we'll have right around 10 of our club members all get together and we'll go do a door knocking blitz. That's part of some, action-based stuff that we do with the club. So that's a lot of it, which has actually lent us some really cool things. I have a guy here who's working with us who he's a professional caddy, like a golf caddy. And so he left for the summer to go back to Chicago where he's from. And he's been just calling NODs from Chicago this whole time. And he's got us a couple of different homeowner appointments. One that we're in the process of working with our attorney right now, but we're doing we approach the situation as trying to help this guy who's old and older and retired and on Social Security and he went into foreclosure and was basically getting scammed by a bunch of people for every last dollar that he had. One guy, when we got to him, he had just paid a guy, what was it? I want to say he makes $11.67 a month in Social Security, and he had just paid a guy $11.64 to stop the foreclosure. So anyway, he was getting left and right. So we were able to help him out, but we put it under contract. We're basically doing what we call like a private reverse mortgage, essentially. So with the rental market kind of being crazy in Tampa right now, he doesn't have anywhere to go. He's pretty clear that he's not got super long to live either. And his whole thing was, I just want to stay in my house. I want to stay here until I go. I don't want to have to worry about where I go to live. So the mortgage payment after we catch up the arrears will be right around $800 a month. We're catching up like $7,000 worth of arrears. But essentially we have the house for what he owes on it, which is 140 roughly, with I think his interest rate is just under 4%. And even at current value right now, like it's currently worth about 350. But we're pretty confident that that's going to go up. So that's the kind of stuff. I mean, that's just a cool example of how we approach someone where, we got the lead, if you will, as a, hey, we want to help this guy save his home. And then it turned out that us helping him save his home and solving his problems actually is, the halo falls off of our head. And now we just bought a $350,000 house for $140,000 with less than 4% interest. So it's awesome. So that's a cool little example.
I think you're muted, Kikoa.
Yeah, you're muted, Kikoa.
Yeah, sorry, my dog was barking. So does that mean that you're going to do a seller financing thing then? Keep the 4% in place?
Exactly. We're going to keep the 4% in place. Just keep paying his mortgage. We're going to pay I think it's $7,000 in arrears, and then we're going to make him. The only thing he's going to pay is the property taxes, which are like $1,200 a year. So he's going to basically pay $100 a month to live there for the rest of his life. And then whenever that unfortunately happens, we will get control of the house.
Gotcha. And so are you giving him any money up front?
Nope. The money that I'm giving him up front. So technically I'm not giving him any money up front, but the money we're giving up front is to pay the arrears. So that's what we
So it gets him out of foreclosure.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So I'm stopping the foreclosure by paying the arrears. And I'm making him pay only $100 a month to live there forever. So we're paying the arrears, paying the mortgage, except for the property tax and just not the property taxes. And then he gets to stay there.
Right.
So that's fascinating for everybody that's a real estate investor. It's like, man, that's kind of a cool thing because you get to help somebody, but then you also get to get a house at some point in the future. So what kind of documentation would you need to put together for something like that? So for example, I mean, the guy could live 2 weeks, he could live 10 more years, right? And so he's basically a tenant. And when you got a tenant like that, it's like, how do you make sure that you articulate everything? So who pays power? And like you said, he's covering taxes, who covers the homeowner's insurance? What happens if something crazy happens, like a hurricane, who comes in? So how do you articulate all that?
Yeah, so to be completely honest, I am giving our attorney a list of things that I want, and he's writing up the documents for me. So I mean, to be completely honest, I don't know. I'll know when I read the contract. But essentially we said, here's the information and please cover our asses. And so that's essentially it. But yeah, basically he's gonna pay the property taxes, and I think he's gonna pay the utilities is what it's, because he even said he would do that. The homeowner did. So
we'll for sure have an agreement to purchase the property subject to, right? And then we're definitely gonna have a rental agreement with him breaking down what he's expected to at least pay whether it's $100 a month or the property taxes explained in there.
It just gets a little bit more complicated too, because we're essentially approaching the bank and saying, hey, because in order to get a loan modification or reinstate a loan, there's a couple of things that you have to do. And one of them is you have to prove that you can make the payment, right? So there's a couple of different parts to it. And one of them is, yes, we have a rental agreement from him to us, but then we also kind of have a rental agreement from us to him, so that we can present that to the bank and say, hey, here's the mortgage that's here's how the income is going to, provide for the mortgage payment, essentially. So there's that a rental agreement for us, rental agreement for him, and then the agreement of essentially he's saying, when he passes, he's signing over all rights to the property.
That's awesome. How old is the seller?
I think he's 72.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I only asked just because it's a little complicated, right? Like you said, there's a rental agreement in place, but there's also another rental agreement, and then there's going to also be a purchase and sale contract, but then yet you're not really selling it because we're actually going to pay for it. And so, so it's kind of cool. I mean, the ability that you guys have to articulate that, build that level of trust with the seller so that you can get these incredible terms, because like you said, by the time when that unfortunate moment happens where he passes, the house is going to be worth way more than $140,000. It already is, right? But
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
And once we pay off the 140, then we have a question.
Oh no, it's my mom.
There she is.
Yeah, it's me. Hi.
Hey, Melina.
I'm driving, so I can't. Hey, I just wanted to point out 2 things. So great job, gentlemen. They did a great job explaining that deal. 2 things I wanted to add in that I think are super important, which is number 1, we had they built a relationship. They reached out to the seller's son. So one of the number 1 I wanted to make sure of, and I trained them this way, and they went right for it. Make sure that the son can't do what we are going to offer, right? So I said, make sure that the heirs, because what I don't want is for the seller's children to maybe, like, if they have the opportunity to do what we are going to do, that would be the best case scenario for them. So Zach and Andrew did a great job of meeting the son, and the son he's 100% on board with what we are doing. He's actually quite thankful that we are taking care of his dad and that his dad has a place to stay. And so he's actually assisting us in the paperwork and all of that, which I think is key. I wouldn't do this if I didn't have that assurance. So I want everybody to be aware of that. And the second thing is I had the conversation with Zach. I said, because we're partnering together on this. So I said, hey, I need to make sure that you're okay. What if this guy lives to be 100? Because that could happen. I'm going to be 108. Yeah. So right. You know what I mean? So totally. So I'm like, so we need to make sure that, are you okay? Because we're going to be splitting this payment of, I don't know, $350 a month or something. Are you comfortable with what if it's for 30 years? Are you still willing to do that? What's the worst case scenario? Well, we pay off the house. And are we comfortable with that? And we wasn't going to get weird. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, exactly. No, so those are the 2 things I just wanted to point out.
Yeah, we didn't actually make offer to him. That's what I was just getting ready to say, that when you jumped in, is that's the funny thing, is I never made this offer to him. Actually, he asked me for it. Was I went to him of just the only thing I went there originally to do was I listened to a phone call from one of our guys with the seller and could tell he was being scammed the moment I heard the phone call. So my whole goal in meeting him was to get him to stop paying the scammer, because essentially the guy was saying, I'll submit a loan mod packet for you for every dollar that you have to your name. And so me and Zach went there and said, that's cool, I'll do the same thing for you for free, you know. So
Right.
And we did it we were there. I mean, I met with him every week for probably close to 6 weeks, if not a little bit more than that. Exhausting every single option we could to get him. I mean, he had the mailers of, hey, I'll pay this cash for your house. So that was my first initial thought was, okay, let's get you every dollar we can from one of these weirdos who's sending you mailers. And then, you know, we'll find you a place in assisted living to live. We'll put your money in a trust so you'll keep getting your social security payments, you know, and then you can just move on. And that we exhausted every option. We couldn't find him a place that he could afford to live, because, you know, for rental, you have to show 3 times the income as what your rental payment is, and he couldn't afford anything. So this was a last ditch, you know, hey, I don't know what we're gonna do. And then his last thing was, will you buy this? Well, what if I sign the house over to you? Will you let me stay here until I die? And so that's how this whole thing was born, was him asking me that question. And then we just got really creative from there.
Yeah, it's super creative. Well, because when Melina jumped in there, it just added another level of complexity, because now on top of all that you're doing with the seller, you're also now got a partnership agreement that's across states, right? And so, and what's interesting about this partnership agreement is that there is no definitive end. Like there is a life estate here, essentially. So when this person dies, that's when, you know, the partnership kind of gets started, right? Because that's when you're gonna fix the house and get moving. But between now and then, it's kind of like, you know, it's got a month, it could be 40 more years, right? And so
Yep.
that's super interesting. And I think for all of us that are on the call that are investors, it's like there's so many creative ways to partner and do deals. And sometimes, you know, we get a little bit stuck in our rut and doing it the way we've always done it. A quick bridge loan, you know, we do it ourselves, bring in one partner, and then we just cash out a seller. But man, this is super creative. And I mean, the back of my head, I'm like, for 150,000, why don't you just pay him cash and then just let him live there? And then, you know, you don't have to worry about all the paperwork. But at the same time, that ties up cash. So this is a great way to get
Right.
in. Yeah, great way to get into property.
And we looked at that opportunity too, because, you know, one of the papers that he had was an offer for 245,000, right? And we said, well, let's look into that. And what does that look like for you? But the problem was the 100 grand, he didn't feel was going to be enough for him to go stay in the area he wanted to, because that area's rent was higher, at least for a longer term, right? So yeah, he may be fine for 5-10 years, let's say, but you know, if he does live longer than that, where is that putting him in the end, right? And he didn't really feel comfortable with that. So that was one of the things we thought about as well, because 240 really was probably a little bit more than that house is worth in the current condition. You know, it does need some current work to it. Once we renovate it and stuff, it's probably 350 to 375. And so that's kind of, it was funny because the 6th, 7th time we went out there and we got to this point, Andrew looks to me, he's like, do you have any pictures of the house? Like, we haven't been past the living room since we've been there. We just come in and sit in the living room and talk with Thomas about his situation and how we could help. We never even looked at the house. So
it really, awesome. It was kind of like, you know, if we're waiting a long time potentially to make our money, you know, so at that point it was kind of like, why not just wait a long time to spend our money then anyway, you know what I mean? And because again, it's the mortgage payment, once we catch up the arrears, it's $800 a month, you know. So at that point, and we're splitting it 2 ways, it's not, you know, Zach's rolling one of his rental properties. He's using that cash flow to make the payment on this. So, you know, none of us, that was the conversation, is it's not, with the amount of money that we're putting out right off the bat, it's not changing any of our lives or anything like that, but it's doing everything for him. So that's why
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. And then what's really cool is that, like you said, it's going to be a neighbor's going to hear about it, a friend, a daughter, a son, and an aunt. And then pretty soon people are going to call you because they're like, you know, whatever you just did for them is ridiculous. Like, who does that? What kind of people are you? You know, I mean, are you some sort of weird cult? Like, why? I mean, what are you trying to cheat, right? But then when they find out you're genuine, and that real estate investors are not all scamming crooks, then suddenly, your little bit of investment that you're making now creatively, will and no money yet, right? Will come back in like an amazing wholesale deal or another property burr. And so, yeah, no, I love that domino effect, and that you don't think about every deal having to be a home run today. It's like sometimes there's discipline to kind of build a tarmac and take a nice slow takeoff. And so I think that's really, really intriguing.
Yeah, that's what's cool too about the way that about just kind of, I guess, how we do real estate is we also, I mean, you heard Zach kind of, rattle them off there in the beginning, but we have several other traditional real estate deals that are going. We're in the middle of 2 or 3 flips right now that are going to pay us great money, anywhere between 50 to 70 grand on each of them. So that's what's cool about it is we are, still working real estate in a traditional sense, but that's why for me, it's like, I'm always just going to go knock NODs, to be honest with you. And I'm going to go call NODs and do all that different stuff, because it just creates the most unique opportunity for me to do things that get me really fulfilled at the same time. We get to like helping Thomas, this guy's name is Thomas, the difference in just his demeanor and everything, from the time that we first went on a meeting, he sleeps on the couch because he's got a girlfriend roommate that takes his bed. So, he's barely awake, getting up off the couch, to now every time I go in there, he's got the lights on, he's drinking coffee, and he's wearing cologne ready for us to come in, so it's just watching the transition personally, it makes it really cool. And then, again, all the other flips and everything that we have going on, it pays the bills enough for us to be able to spend our time doing this, which is really cool.
Yeah. And for me, I think personally, it's just cool because, right, like you said, there's so many different ways that we can help homeowners. But I mean, also for like everyone on the call, right, it shows how many different ways people can get involved. So, maybe something like that appeals to someone on the call that would like to, go down a deal like that with us, right? I mean, for me, I looked at it as it's going to cost me $4,500 a year to own a property with a ton of built-in equity in a great location, right? So when that time does come, right, are we rehabbing it and selling it? Are we cash out refining and keeping it as a rental, right? So how many other people, on the call could be interested in something like that? Because I mean, the opportunities here are just endless right now with not only Tampa Bay, but, counties north over in Lakeland and Orlando, down south. There's so much growth in so many different markets. So
we're seeing a lot of people.
I'm in on Lakeland, so don't you guys go there without me, man. I'm pretty excited about that place. But, no, and I think that, Andrew, what you said is really good for anybody who's kind of newer. NOD actually stands for notice of default. And so it's kind of a really cool opportunity. And I think a lot of us do, we talk about foreclosure and pre-foreclosures, and we buy those lists off of, List Source, and, and they're kind of meh. But what Andrew and Zach do, and what New Wealth does, is that they take that to a whole new level. Like it's not just a list to call to get a deal. It's a list to call to help a family. And I think that that's what the change is. And as a result, it's pretty complicated, but then yet it's so simple and it's so rewarding. And I want to see you guys unpack that a little bit more. And we're already 10 minutes after. See, I told you guys the time would go fast.
Oh, geez.
Well, we got a nice conversation to have when we come over there in a couple of weeks. So
exactly right. So in a couple of weeks, everybody here is going to be in Oahu and at Dave and Buster's, so you can. Actually, drinking and learning real estate is all a part of the theology here. So you can join us on the.
Where's Mary? Yeah, we've had some crazy parties at Dave Buster's over there. Actually,
I've had some crazy parties too at Dave and Buster's, but I wasn't such a good boy back in those days. So I'll have to be a little better. But October 14th, Saturday. Sheena, can you drop the link for the event in the chat? And then there's actually going to be a really cool local panel as well, and there's several actually that are on this call that are going to be on that panel. So we've got some government leaders are going to be there that we're going to get a chance to interview and talk a little bit about development and permitting and just some of the ways in which we can make Hawaii even more efficient relative development and investment. So that's going to be really interesting. And then of course we've got our friends here coming from Tampa, from Riverside, from kind of all over the country. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some really amazing topics. So Sheena's going to put that in there. Melina, do you want to share a little bit about the event while we're kind of transitioning to that?
No, but I think.
All right. Well, I got you covered. So.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. You do it. You do it, Coco. You do a great job. I'm actually stuck in. I'm in a weird place. Thank
Are you
you.
in a weird place? Are you in a weird place in your car or a weird place in life? Because you
I'm-
know,
I'm well, a little bit of both. A little bit of both.
aren't we all? Aren't we all? So yeah, no, it'd be great if
Yes.
all of you have a chance to join us. Definitely jump in. I think Sheena must be looking for the link. Unless Layla, you got that link handy, that'd be awesome. And yeah, Zach and Andrew actually are going to be a part of a panel that we're actually pulling together of Tampa people. And it's not going to be just about Tampa. It's really about how do you invest out of state and what are some of these creative ways. We're going to get real practical because I think we barely scratch the surface. And I think that's where we want to go deeper and kind of hear, how do you create that type of engagement, and how do you approach a home differently than everybody else knocking on that house saying, I want to buy your house. I want to buy it cheap. I want to buy it fast. Because there's some really shady people out there. And so there's a way to do this that really gets a lot of results. And so definitely would love to see you guys unpack that. And then also to really unpack, maybe you can come prepared to talk a little bit about some of that documentation. Like, how does that work? For a lot of people, these seller financing, seller wraps just get a little confusing because in some ways it's like, well, why would the seller want to let you take over the payments, but he keeps the mortgage in his name? So there's some of those questions that would be great to hear. And how does that work when you have due on sale clauses, which are, the acceleration clauses? How does that work? And who actually closes this? Do you go through title? Do you not? So
yeah, I can unpack a couple case studies and bring some agreements that I have for some of the deals I've done with us. We can maybe throw them up on the screen or one of them there.
Yeah, we should have everything put together. The attorney should have everything put together for us on this one too by the time we get out there, so we can definitely talk through more details of it. I just don't want to, again, it's so much in the attorney's court right now. I just don't want to say something and then have to put my foot in my mouth later.
Yeah, no, totally. But Andrew, it's funny because you told me you weren't going to talk, but man, brah, you said a lot, dude. So Andrew's got a lot to share. So does Zach. So yeah, no, come prepared. That'd be great. Because I think we'll have a lot of questions. If no one else has questions, I always do. So we'll have a nice conversation for sure. But yeah, with that, I think let's wrap it down now. And then Layla, are there any final announcements? Nope, no final announcements. Corey disappeared. I think we're looking good. You guys were great to have on. Thank you so much. And everybody for listening in. Thank you again for jumping in on a Friday. It is what I guess is the last day of summer is what people are saying. And we're moving into fall. Tampa is 60 some degrees today, which is crazy because it was like 180 the other day. So yeah, and Vegas has dropped down to 80 degrees. So that's kind of weird. But yeah, so everybody, as you head into fall, hope that everything's going well and that you're excited about what's coming up in the fall season. And we'll catch you next Friday. We'll have some additional guests next Friday, which will be great. And then again, October 14th, if you can join us. We'd love to see you there. I'll be on island too, so pretty excited to be around with everybody. So with that, awesome. Aloha. Have a great Friday. Thanks,
Awesome.
Tay.
Thank you guys for having me.
Loved having you. Greg and his haircut. You look good. Greg, come over to Oahu, bro. If you can.
Oh my God, I'm so tired of traveling, bro. I've been gone for like 2 months.
Well, just be there for a little while and you don't have to travel.
Yeah.
Honestly, Greg, I would not call a 20-minute flight traveling. I call that commute. That's
yeah, especially after being on the East Coast, man. That trip is brutal. With the 2-year-old flying we first went to New Jersey and then to Florida for like a month each. And it was awesome, but man, traveling with the 2-year-old it's tough.
No, I remember those days, man. It goes fast though.
Yeah.
It goes quick. Is that your oldest, your 2-year-old?
Only, yeah. Actually, she's the youngest. All 4 of our dogs are older than her.
All 4 of your dogs?
So, yeah,
the dogs are actually easier to travel with.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, we have 4 dogs and just Kaya, just one kid. We're one and done.
That's awesome. Well, if you can make it over, definitely come over. We'd love to have you. I'd love to see you.
Yeah, no, I would like to come over sometime. In fact, we've got a whole bunch of things on the to-do list for Oahu. So, are you in Oahu?
I'm going to be on Oahu for that event. So I'm coming in on like the 12th
Oh.
or 13th of October. So
Okay.
if you can make it over during that little period of time, let's go hang out.
So just for maybe like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, I'm going to just fly in for that event. So yeah, 12th, 13th. Then on the 14th is the event. 15th, I think Layla and I are going to do a bunch of open houses, try to sell some properties out in Waianae that we got. And then I'll take off, maybe get a tattoo in between there somewhere. So if you want to get a tattoo, come join me.
Right
I'm
on.
gonna
Okay,
be
yeah, I'll
Austin.
see if we can line that up.
I'll be in
Yeah, dude.
Austin.
Oh yeah, Layla's not gonna be around. So it's just me getting a tattoo. Come on, Greg. Come hang out with me. Well, awesome, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll definitely chat soon. Greg, text me if you need. We'll play.
Right on. Thank
All
you.
right, catch you guys
Okay,
later.
will do.
Aloha.